You can barely hear yourself thinking here as they're trying to get this defense off to a good start. They're going to open this drive with a pass. Going to try to get it himself. On the run, and he'll slide to avoid the big hit.
Defense is all about creating net. And he does a really good job at the quarterback spot of not taking sacks. Like, that's a great job. He wants to throw the football. The clock goes off. He takes off and gets a positive gain.
Let's see what they've got on second down. He's looking to throw. And that pass will be jarred loose on second down. That brings up third down.
Big tight end tries to make a catch, and you can tell he extends for the ball, but great job by the defender getting in there, making the hit, dislodging the football out at the same time as he's going to catch it, and the big tight end couldn't hold on to it.
Here comes this home crowd as the defense tries to get off the field on third down. From the gun, wants to pass. That was almost picked off, and what a disaster that would have been to throw a pick on the opening drive. Instead, it's fourth down. The Knights will bring the punt team onto the field. This will be their first punt of the afternoon. And Georgia ready to go back to work on offense. They hope to be able to cash in on this drive, David, after having to punt it last time.
Yeah, and I think this offense needs to start it with the first play. You need to be successful and productive on that first play, and it gets you in less predictable situations.
No doubt, too. Don't you just feel like there's a little bit more sense of urgency on this drive? It just feels like they've got to be able to put some points up on the board here.
To the ground with the back. Won't back down from anyone. Delivers the blow and gets it to the 29.
I know it's sexy to throw the football, but if you can pound it away and get these kind of gains, they will just add up, wear the defense down, get first downs, and ultimately get some points.
They'll go right back to him. They get him on the ground, but it's a first down.
Well, it's an electrifying run. You think about the tradition at the running back position for the Bulldogs. Herschel Walker and his Heisman Trophy. No Sean Marino. And how about this? Todd Gurley, Nick Chubb, and Sony Michel all there at the same time. I bet this guy could have gotten to that rotation, though, because he's got those types of skills.
And the Bulldogs will have it first and 10. Quarterback will audible. Motion from the offense. Running back searching for a hole. They get him on the ground with this running game imposing its will. 6-yard gain down to the 17.
I like it. Just frustrate the defense. Get that 5 to 6 yards. Make them honor the run. Make them know that you're willing to run the football and run it effectively.
Got 6 on first down. Now a lot of options on second and 4. They want to run this quarterback. They finally get him on the ground with a big running play moves to change for the first down.
And the evolution of the quarterback position. Basically, you should call them running backs who throw the ball really well now.
And guys, you know the other thing that happens here is that sets up the next play because you've sort of left the defensive line gassed trying to run down the quarterback.
Oh, you got to be in shape, chasing him around all day on design runs, on scrambles, and, you know, it's just, and the +1 advantage you get by having that guy. It's so hard to defend.
And this one will be stopped for no gain.
You got to have that defense you know you can go to in running situations. Your base defense where you say, okay, this is where I'm going to start, and I'm going to stop the run, stuff it up front. My guys play big up front. And then if I need to add some blitzes to it later on down the road, I can. But great job in the base defense making a play.
That's the end of the first quarter. And after one, we're scoreless.
They'll try to open this quarter by sticking it in the end zone here.
325.
They'll run it up the middle here, looking for a path to the end zone. He bullies his way all the way down to the 5-yard line.
This has been really good for the defense, too. It's kind of a bend-don't-break mentality, right? Really bowing up with your backs against the wall. If you can win this next third down, try to force the opponent into a field goal, that's a win if you're on defense.
Wide receiver now comes in motion. Quarterback touch pass on the jet sweep. Touchdown, Dogs! And they strike first.
Can't start a game any better than that. Defense gets the stop, gives it back to the offense. You march down the field, you score. They are in a great rhythm now on both sides of the ball.
Now they'll line up for what they hope is automatic. And he's got the extra point, and it's 7-0 to start this one. That last drive covered 52 yards on their way to the score. And the score comes on a 5-yard touchdown pass. No return coming. He'll call for the fair catch. UCF has it once again. What do you think about that? The last time we saw this offense, we had to look quick. It was a 3-and-out, Jesse.
They just had no rhythm in that last drive. So someone's going to have to step up and make a play, David, and get this thing going.
Yeah, let's find some juice. Find your guy. Find those plays that you know you can run inside out, forward, backwards. Get some first downs. Get some positive momentum.
And here comes the offense on second down. They'll run play action. Throws to the wideout. A strike downfield. The defense got caught that time, and they finally get him on the ground at the 41.
Yeah, and you see some quarterbacks who hesitate to throw the ball over the middle. I love it when you attack the whole field. And the middle of the field and being able to throw over linebackers and between safeties is a big skill, but show that defense. You will attack everywhere.
Open space at the 25. And he'll take this into the end zone, but hang on just a second. Flag down. Let's see what this is about. Looking for a productive play on first down. They'll go to the air. Feeling some heat. And the defense gets to the quarterback. It's no surprise at all to find a Georgia defensive lineman wreaking havoc in the backfield.
Yeah, find those big, physical, aggressive dudes that can be physical enough to play the run in the SEC and then pin your ears back and go get quarterbacks. Georgia does that and finds those guys really, really often.
He'll pull it down. Still running at the 40. That is exactly what you're looking for when you talk explosive plays. The defense finally able to make the stop.
And you're seeing here the difficulties defenses have trying to contain this guy. If you leave a lane open or you don't sack him right away, you allow him to get outside the pocket, he is going to take off, and he is very difficult to tackle in the open field. He's got running back-like ability out in space.
And I think you're seeing these guys in every offense now. These littler guys that they're so quick, it's hard to get a hand on them. Run crisp routes. You can throw it short, You can throw it long, but they're just big-time playmakers. You've definitely seen an emphasis shift towards smaller wide receivers with some serious skill.
Noses his way forward, maybe gets one. They'll mark it at the 18.
Yeah, and the running back didn't get much here, but, you know, you clearly want to always establish the tempo, run the football, be consistent, make that defense physically meet the challenge.
Third down, and this crowd is tearing the lid off this place. They'll try to run for it. That just never had a chance as they controlled the middle of the field and stopped him in the backfield on third down. And on fourth down, here comes the field goal unit. They pick the spot. It's going to be about a 37-yard attempt. Right down the boulevard, it's good. After putting 3 on the board, the kickoff unit ready to go. He'll call for the fair catch here. We're ready to get another look at this Bulldog offense. How about the way they attacked the last time they had the ball, mixing run and pass and winding up in the end zone, Jesse?
That's why recruiting is so important. They've got weapons at every skill position on the field. Any of these guys is dangerous if they touch the football. Let's see what they do on this drive, David.
And so, Palmer, I got to take away something. I can't let them have everything and have success. I got to be aggressive against the run or play for the pass. I can't give them everything.
On the move. May not be the most memorable play of the day, but it's important as he gets them out to the 25-yard line.
QBs that can run completely change your game plan. I mean, every single bit of it. You have to understand, now as a pass rusher, I got to keep him in the pocket.
Looking to take a shot. And that ball is hauled in inside the 35. Slippery slide, find his way and ran away from the crowd into the end zone. Touchdown, Bulldogs! Quick strike touchdown comes out and jumpstarts the offense.
And man, we see this in college football, so much explosiveness and firepower, and we get high-scoring game after high-scoring game, and it looks like we're on pace for one of those right now.
And the extra point makes it 14-3. We check in with Kevin Connors. What's going on, Kevin?
All right, guys, a little update on what else is happening in college football this weekend. Kent State is trailing right now, but let's be honest. The program that turned out Josh Cribbs should never be counted out of any game. They're trailing by 13 to Indiana. We'll circle back. If anything big happens, you should know about it.
Oh, and how about that? I know Kevin and those guys will be keeping an eye on it for us. He wastes no time and comes out throwing. Hit hard as he released the ball on that first down pass, and it never had a chance. The Knights racing to the line in the hurry-up. On second down, looking again to throw. Unloads to the wideout. Got his man downfield. Gets it to the 46-yard line. First down for this offense. Clock stops momentarily for the first down. They'll hurry to the line. Looking to move it through the air. Dances away from the heat. The quarterback scrambled around, but the defense able to scramble him and turn it into a sack. Defense not showing press coverage. On second down, he'll fire. Nowhere close on that one as he got drilled trying to deliver the football, and now they face third down.
You got to love the aggressive nature this defense is playing with right now, and you're seeing the athletes and the dudes they've got up front. A sack on the last play. They hit the quarterback on this last one. Now third down, you know they're going to be pinning their ears back.
Looking to scramble. Right down the middle. He's got an open man.
Nice play design on that one. You make it easy for your quarterback, too, because it's easy to see what's happening right in front of you. Over the middle of the field, you can see where defenders are dropping. You can see where the soft spots are in zone coverage. And just a really nice job by the QB locating his guy and making an accurate throw.
Got away from trouble and got rid of it. Makes the catch. It's Hope. A timeout is called as this offense tries to find a way to get more points on the board before the half.
And you see so many smart wide receivers, so many smart tight ends nowadays that they know where the holes in those zones are, and they work with their quarterback, and they find them, and they sit down in them and make big plays. It's tough to sit back in zone against such smart players nowadays.
Finally, this offense starting to show a little juice. They've got a 1st and 10. Catch in the middle, it's Wade. And he was just a couple of steps away from taking that one even further after the catch. The Knights will snap it on 1st and 10. Looking to pass inside the red zone. He wants it all. And he's got it. Touchdown, Knights.
Touchdown, UCF. Number 82 with the carry.
And wait just a second. The official's going to take a second look at this one. And you know the standard is indisputable video evidence, and the officials will change the call. Time dwindling away as they try to put points on the board right before the half. Dialing up a second down pass play. Gets rid of it. It's complete to the right. And he'll run across the sidelines after the good gain.
And a great play design here in this type of situation, obviously. Trailing, you're trying to put something up on the scoreboard and just using the sideline, using the boundary, getting the ball out of bounds and stuff.
The terrain gets rough this deep in the red zone. Third down, they can pick up the first without scoring. They'll try to get it through the air. Got it! He gets it in! Touchdown, UCF!
UCF, number 83, with the catch and score.
They're going to go ahead and go for 2 here and try to make it a field goal game. Looking to throw. He gets into the end zone to convert, and they'll tack on a couple right before the half. So here comes the kickoff after the touchdown, and the last thing you need right before the half is to give up a big return. And that is not the optimal solution there. The kickoff out of bounds, and the offense will have a little bit easier time of things. Just enough time to get off one final play of the half.
Clear. Cricket.
Quick touch pass to the receiver. He'll be brought down, and that's the final play of the half. That's going to wrap up the first half here, and now we join Kevin with the halftime update.
Georgia, 14, UCF, 11.
Kickoff team is on the field. They'll try to drive this one deep. Not going to risk a return here. He'll make the fair catch. The UCF offense back on the field, ready to go to work. If they're going to get on top in this game, they're going to have to find a way to get the running game going in the second half.
Agree, so it can create some more balance, some more unpredictability. I feel like this defense has got a good beat on what they're doing, especially if they don't mix it up a little bit. So I do look for a little second half running the football Palmer out of this group.
And I think the thing, Dave, is they just got to be more physical. I don't think this is a scheme question about trying different run plays. I think it's up to the big fellas up front. They've just got to make the decision that they're going to be tougher here in the second half so that they can win this game.
And a great job by the QB finding the running back, getting the football where he can do some damage after the catch, and most importantly, get the first down.
Fires to the big fella. And a good job of coverage by that defense, just a short pickup. The Knights want to pick up the tempo.
A nice job by the defense there tackling the catch and smothering the tight end. They know this offense is going to try to find him in the passing game in a lot of different situations. That time, perfect coverage, and nice job bringing the big guy down. Not easy to do.
And it slips through his fingers, incomplete. That would have been a huge gain if he could have held on.
This defense has a lot of speed, especially in the secondary, and you saw that speed. That defender got to that receiver so quick, and because of the hit, incomplete pass.
On third down, he drops to throw. And that's incomplete. A defender all over him. Knocked the ball to the ground. Fourth down coming up.
When you get the incompletion there on third down, you've still got a half of football basically to play. Do you trust your defense down one possession to get it back to give you a shot? If you don't, you've got to stay out there and you've got to go for this. And you've got to dial up your best play to stay on the field.
And Georgia ready to go back to work on offense. The give to the tailback. That's what you expect from a senior. Don't give them any extra yards. Great tackle there.
And the defense doing a great job committing to the run. When you commit to the run like this, obviously you can give up some plays in the passing game, but you got to stop the run first.
After picking up a couple, it's 2nd and 8. The pull and throw off the RPO. They stop him almost immediately. Short gain there, and still a little ground to cover to pick up the first.
It's so nice as a quarterback when you've got a guy like that working for you in the slot. He has such a good feel to find the open spaces in the defense. Just makes life so much easier for his quarterback.
Ball is at the 42-yard line, close to 4-down territory. Here's 3rd and short. He'll take it himself. And the defense had its hands full, but they finally wrestle him down short of the first down. Quarterback keeper. He's brought down, but there's a flag on the field. Let's see what the call is.
That's just a mental error. On defense, you got to watch the ball. I understand the quarterback shouting and he's clapping and there's all this crowd noise, but you just got to hone in, watch the football before you come out of your stance.
Man, oh man, those types of penalties just drive defensive coordinators crazy. Was 4th down, now 1st down. Makes that one pay off, and they finally get him down at the 38. It'll be 1st down.
1st down, physicality wins football games. Being able to run the football and create balance. And right here, just choose up another 1st down. Gives you another chance to maybe continue to run the football.
And I feel like this guy, too, is just an explosive play waiting to happen. His vision, his quickness, and he's got to burst. If you give this guy just a crease, he's going to hit it. And right now, he's doing some damage on this defense.
Trying to find his man on 1st down. Starting to feel a little pressure. Couldn't find anybody to throw to. He'll just toss it away. It'll be 2nd down.
Well, man, this quarterback is fast. And you saw that on his ability to scramble around, but he wasn't fast enough to outrun that hit. And it was the hit that caused the incompletion.
Now on the move. Runs through a tackle. Just a savvy, veteran, productive run from this junior.
Well, I don't know what the quarterback saw in that last play, but he made a pretty quick decision that he was just going to tuck it and run it, and his offensive coordinator is glad he did. How about the speed by the QB on that play?
Looking to go up top on first down. He'll take a shot. Falls incomplete, and he did everything perfectly except catch the football. Second down coming.
What a play by the defender there, guys, in his own end zone. The offense has taken a shot, and if that defender was just one step behind, that would have been a touchdown. But the hit forces the incompletion.
Second down coming up. Quick pass on the fly motion. The defense wouldn't let him loose there, and it was a completion, but they lost yardage. The Bulldogs moving quickly to the line. On third and long, a check down would be the last resort. He's got it! Into the end zone! Touchdown, Georgia!
Quarterback's abilities to read the field is huge, and also the anticipation, the timing. To be able to throw the football, Jesse, and hit a guy in stride so he can get run after the catch and get in the end zone, that was a nice job by the quarterback.
Yeah, it's critical, David. Listen, a lot of times touchdown passes aren't thrown into the end zone. You've got to read the coverage, hit the open guy, and let him do the rest.
On to attempt the try.
The kicker is on for the extra point.
And the extra point will tack another one onto this lead. And let's check in with Kevin Connors in the studio. Kevin?
Terrific showdown this week, guys. Let's take a look at what's going on. Iowa State is in front. They've controlled the line of scrimmage to this point. But you take a look at the scoreboard and you see we have ourselves a close game. They're up by 7 over Florida Atlantic. We'll circle back if anything big happens you need to know about.
And how about that one? Kevin will be keeping an eye on everything going on elsewhere. Now the UCF offense ready to go back to work. The deficit here is just 10 points, David, so a chance to answer here.
Plenty of time left in this football game. No need to panic. This offense just has to put a couple drives together. And listen, the defense will get this back and get some stops following and get you the football back.
And I think here too, David, you have an opportunity to keep the pressure on the opponent. Yeah, they just went down and scored, but you score here, and this game's still tight. You keep their feet to the fire, so an opportunity here to keep applying that pressure.
Complete downfield. They're ripping off chunks of yardage. They get it to the 33. They are dialed in on this drive. A couple of chunk plays, and now they'll snap it on first down. Gonna run it. It's Gutierrez. They bring him down, and he's gonna lose a yard on that one. Lost one on that last one. It's 2nd and 11.
You just got to wonder how frustrated this guy is, especially after the success he had their last game out, but just nothing going in this one. He has not been able to get himself into a rhythm. There have been way too much penetration up front defensively. They've been able to stop him in his tracks.
And they get him on the ground, and that'll probably do it for the third quarter.
That's the end of the third quarter. With the score, Georgia 21, UCF 11.
They line up, and it is a long way to the sticks from here. On third down, he'll try to pick it up through the air. And the incomplete pass will bring up fourth down. Huge play here late, and this crowd is coming to help the defense. He'll try to throw and pick up the first down. Unloads to the right. Makes the grab, and it's plenty for the first down. And he's bounced out of bounds, but not before a very productive gain. The Knights headed quickly to the line. Calls his own number. He'll be brought down at the 5-yard line, and this defense is on its heels. And they'll send 5 wide receivers out, maybe creating some room for the quarterback to run. And he runs it in for the score. Touchdown, Knights! So they get that score that they so desperately needed, and now they've got a chance to pull this one out.
Defense has got to give them a chance. The defense needs to get the ball back to them quickly so they can march down the field and try and score and narrow the gap again. This offense, they have the playmakers to come back and win this football game. They're going to need some help from the defense.
The defense going to stop the clock with a timeout. They want to make sure they have everybody on the same page. Fair catch called for and made. We're ready to get another look at this Bulldog offense. Really good balance on that last drive. They mixed it up all over the place, Jesse.
Yeah, how nice, too, to have the defense on their heels, because at this point, they don't know what's coming at them. They had problems stopping everything that last drive did.
So I think this defense would come back with a little more aggressiveness. I mean, they let them have what they wanted. Now they got to dictate to this offense a little bit more.
Not what they had in mind to start this drive. Here comes 2nd and 13. He's looking to throw. Got it in the middle. It's Aguilar. He's really close to that first down marker, but they stop him just a bit short.
This guy's gotten off to a good statistical start, guys, but that last completion, he's already now over 1,000 passing yards on the season, and man, you know he's looking for more.
It's 3rd down from their own 34 as they try to keep the drive moving. Looking to throw for it. And he was hit just as he released it, and it falls to the turf. They'll keep the offense on the field on 4th down already with a 1-possession lead. This quarterback part of their running game. And they'll spot it at the 38, and that'll be plenty for the first down.
A lot of times when you're in your own territory and it's 4th and 1, you see the offense try to draw people off sides. No, sir. They said, we're going to get this thing. We need 1 yard. We got 1 yard. We worked on it all week. They were successful. Nice aggressiveness early in their own territory.
And the Dogs getting set on 1st and 10. Quarterback keeps it. A 7-yard pickup. It'll be 2nd and 3.
In situations like this, offensively, when you've got the lead in the 4th quarter, when you got to run the ball, you go back to the runs that you have the most confidence in, that you can execute in your sleep, and they do it right there, ripping off 7 yards.
And now on 2nd down for this offense. Here's an interception. Oh, did they need that turnover? Going the other way, and he's got room. And with the interception, he'll take it all the way back. Touchdown, UCF! Getting set for the point after. And the extra point is good, and every point counts. It's now a 4-point lead in the 4th. They'll kick it off and send that defense right back out there to try to score again after the pick 6. Fielded in the end zone. It's Kendricks. Stopped at the 17, and he's probably second-guessing that return. And Georgia ready to go back to work on offense. The big thing now, don't get rattled by that last pick six, David.
Nah, it was a big mistake. Obviously, the defense took advantage of it, but you got to put it behind you. Jesse, I'm sure you know a thing or two about throwing a pick six and how to rebound.
I believe I've only thrown one in my life, but yes, I do, because of that singular instance. I'll say this. You can't let that play beat you twice. You got to go out and not try to get it all back here in one play. Just execute the offense.
He's got his man. Brought down at the 27. It's a 5-yard pickup on the play. That was a nice pickup, running the drag route and finding that quiet, soft spot in the zone.
Yeah, drag routes not only work against man coverage, they work against zone too. If you can find the soft spot and the quarterback gets it to him early, he can turn upfield, and you saw that right there.
Quarterback flips it ahead quickly to the receiver. And I think they'll give him 2 on that one, 2nd and 8 coming up. Now they've got to hustle to the line and get set. Wants to fire on 2nd down. That pass is incomplete, and they might be fortunate it wasn't knocked free for a fumble. It'll be 3rd down. A designed run for the quarterback. He showed it all there. A little elusiveness, a little power, and he's got the 1st down.
Well, this guy's a weapon, throwing it and running it, and you know he's going to try to hurt this defense with his legs.
It puts so much stress on the defensive line to chase him, and the fact that the play is extended so long.
Yeah, if they've got a spy defensively, if someone's athletic enough to run with this guy, that's going to be...
And the deep shot is complete inside the 35-yard line.
What a beautiful throw and catch on this play, and I love the job the receiver did tracking the ball in the air. Nice job of locating the throw and then hauling it in.
They had hoped to come up with explosive plays, and they used one there to set them up inside the 30, 1st and 10. Quarterback checking off. Wide receiver coming across in motion. Quick pass on the jet motion. And he's brought down after a nice gain.
This offense has a lot of different ways they can attack you, and you're going to see the entire playbook at work in this game. Throwing it, running it, and getting guys the ball out on the perimeter. Great job.
Inside the 15, 1st and 10 from the 14.
Let's go!
Looks as if he's going to run it. He's all the way down to the 3. Showed it all on that run.
It's a really nice job of the offense mixing it up on this drive. We've seen some nice plays throwing it, and how about that one running it too? Great push up front.
So now the opportunity to take the lead with a 1st and goal here.
Pound 55, weak. Ready to go.
Just going to keep it after the snap. Touchdown, Dogs! And in the final moments, they've taken the lead.
Man, what a great job by this offense executing down the field, using all of the clock, being smart, getting a big score late, and I think that one should do it.
This one's big to make sure they can't beat you with a field goal. And the kick is good, but there is a penalty flag because he paid for making that kick. I think they're going to get him for roughing the kicker. So the decision has been made, and the coach will take the penalty. They're lining up to kick it off, and he ought to be able to knock this one anywhere he wants after that extra 15 yards with the roughing the kicker. Here's the return from inside his 10. Nice job executing all of the assignments as they put a stop to that return at the 22. they have to do is get it close enough for a field goal here. Wants to throw on first down. Quarterback now breaking the field. Fires a bullet. Now it's picked off. And with that turnover, that'll finish the game. You want to talk about building confidence? Coming through with clutch plays, making the winning plays at the right time can really set the course for the rest of the season.
Yeah, Reese, maturity and experience matters, and this team has guys that have played a lot of snaps, they've seen a lot of looks, and they've lost close games like this in the past. That wasn't the case today, David. Too many guys out there making big-time plays.
And I think belief is what you build. That confidence, you know you're going to win. You don't think you're going to win. You know you're going to make that play in the big moment that continues to build on week-to-week success. And you look up and you're like, dang, we strung a couple wins together.
That's going to do it for us. For Jesse Palmer, David Pollack, our entire broadcast team, I'm Reese Davis. This has been another presentation of EA Sports College Football.